Hi, everyone, and welcome to MLC's webinar on programming basics. Have you ever been watching a movie or a TV show and rolled your eyes when the main characters go to the library to do research? There are lots of old books, everyone's quiet, deep in thought, and somehow all the paranormal books haven't been stolen and they magically hold the history of the local cryptid, or, something on microfilm contains the key to solving the cold case murders. A lot of people only know libraries from TV and movies. They really don't know what we do and what we have to offer. And some people haven't stepped foot in a library since they were in school. So, how do we change that? One of the big ways we can do that is with programs. We can draw people in with good programs and show them what we're made of. Now, they have other benefits too, and we'll go over that in just a little bit. Today, we're going to do a basic introduction to programming in general. We'll brush on all the main points you'll need to consider to set yourself up for success. If you've attended our virtual frontline trainings or our Librarianship 101 trainings, a lot of the content here is going to be very similar. Now, everything we cover today can be applied to programs for all age groups and all types of patrons. Some of the topics we're going to cover today are a lot more fun than others, but they're all important. We're going to talk about why we even do them in the first place, some different types of programs, where to go to find ideas, how to make a good plan of attack and a simple budget, how to market your program to your community or to a specific audience, and how to evaluate and document your programs so you have a good picture of how things went and what to do next time. So why do libraries even do programs? Because we operate on public funds, grants, and donations, we need to be able to justify why we're doing the things that we do. If the mayor walks in and says, "Why are you making wreaths out of old book pages? Why are you spending taxpayer money on crafts? What does that even have to do with reading? And why are you destroying perfectly good books that the city paid good money for?" If the only answer you have ready is because it's fun or because we thought people would like it, you might be in trouble. But if you can say you're fostering community involvement, helping people create relationships with their community, or promoting the library's resources. And if you can convince them that all the books, of course, were either donated or damaged in the first place, you might have avoided a very unpleasant incident. And also, being able to justify programs is great if you're trying to convince someone to donate money or items or time. Not to mention being able to get approval from your supervisor to do a program in the first place. But luckily, it's not hard to do. Here's a list of things that could help you. So, we do programs to promote materials and resources, to show off the great things that we have. So, like with the REITs, you can even add in a goal of increasing circulation of your crafting books or how to run a small business from home books. So if you have a display of those while you're doing the program, you're promoting library resources. We also do them to support lifelong learning. This is an easy one. Learning should never stop. Programs can also greatly increase our visibility in the community. Even if people don't come to a program, but they see the flyers or the social media posts or they read about it in the newspaper, they see that we're doing good things. And that can come in handy around budget time when we look to them to voice their support for us. Whether or not we're bringing them in, we're showing them that we're here and that we're doing great things. Programs can also reach more patrons. This is where people's stereotypical idea of what a public library comes into play. I'm sure you can name several TV shows or movies that have helped create such a strange image of libraries. And we know we're completely different. But if we can draw them in, then we can show them that we are completely different than what they know. Programs are also a great way to address a need for information in the community. So, for example, in 2023, 12 million pine trees died in Mississippi. Some were directly due to drought. Some were weakened by the drought, making it easy for the southern pine beetle to move in. And it's expected to be worse this year. So that's a prime candidate for a library program, letting people know what the pine beetle is and what effect it has on their trees. The scientific name for the southern pine beetle, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but it means tree killer, which is an excellent name for a program. I'd want to go to something about tree killers. Programs can also foster community involvement. We want to help people create relationships within their communities, whether it's connecting craft enthusiasts with wreaths or gardeners and landowners with information about tree killing pine beetles. We are fostering relationships. There are so many benefits to community involvement. Creates a sense of belonging, increases people's social skills, helps them make new friends, exposes them to different ideas and perspectives, and all of that helps build a stronger community and a stronger society. We're going to move on and cover very quickly some different types of programs. They can be broken down in a lot of different ways, and there is no one best type. There's only what works best for your topic, your audience, and your abilities. Traditional programs are the style most people think of when they hear the word program. They occur on a specific date and time, like June 30th from 3 to 4 p.m. And in order for patrons to participate, they have to be in attendance at that specific time. So these are things like story times, book clubs, a local history presentation. Passive programs occur over a longer period of time, such as a week or a month. So think National Library Week or Native American Heritage Month. Patrons can participate at their leisure and pick whatever days and times work best with their schedules. Most often, these are unmanned activities with very little staff interaction or monitoring needed. These can be as simple as coloring pages or puzzles, or as complex as a citywide scavenger hunt. Now, a lot of people say, is a passive program really a program? Well, of course it is. We're presenting an engaging activity that community members participate in and they're gaining enjoyment or knowledge from. It may not be traditional, but it still counts. Some programs happen only once, like a local wildlife group coming to talk about the services they offer in your community. Programs can also be a short series with a set number of events, like a 4-week basic introduction to sewing. Or they can be recurring, like a monthly book club or a weekly story time for preschoolers. When deciding what's going to work best for your topic, audience, and abilities, think about it like this. Do you want to make a movie? Or do you want to make a mini series? Well, limited series for the older ones of us, they used to be called mini series. Now it's limited series. Or do you want to make a TV show? Now, while we love people coming through our doors and we love going out to do programs in the community, in-person contact isn't always possible or cost effective. It's not always the best way to reach all patrons either. So while most people think of library programs as being traditional, occurring at a set time, date, and place, they also think of them as being in person only. Virtual programs offer an alternative for times when the library isn't open or for special populations. Sometimes you have a really great speaker who simply can't travel, or you're not able to pay the travel expenses for them to come to your library, but they're happy to do a virtual presentation or meeting. Hybrid programs are a combination. They occur in person, but are also being viewed online. This allows patrons that want to or are able to come together in a physical space while still providing access to those who are homebound or have limited mobility. They're traveling, they're immunocompromised, or maybe they just have a really busy schedule. They can still participate even if they can't physically be there. Now, hybrid programs can be problematic to set up, but once you've got it figured out, it's a really good option to offer. They run best with one additional staff member whose only role is to handle the virtual side of things and to handle the interaction between the virtual and in-person attendees. Programs can also be broken down by type of presenter. With staff presented, the library staff does everything, all the work, including the presenting, and you have full control over the entire event. But we often offer programs with non-staff presenters. The library does the background work, like the planning, the marketing, the room setup, and the presenter provides the content. So an example of this would be a series of lectures on local wildlife, where the library brings in a Department of Wildlife and Fisheries one week, a local vet the next week, local wildlife rescue group maybe the next. In collaborative programs, the workload is shared. So an example of this would be the therapy dog group who comes in to have children practice reading to the dogs. The library sets up the space, selects and provides the books, does all of the marketing. The therapy group brings in the dogs, handles the dogs, and interacts with the children. So they're both doing a good portion of work there. Now we're going to cover what a lot of people think is the most fun aspect of programming, finding ideas. If you keep your ideas organized from the time you start looking, it's going to be a lot easier on you in the long run. It's a good idea to create two lists. One is for programs that can be done quickly, easily, and cheaply. The other is for programs that will take more time, collaboration, or money to happen. It's also a good idea to have a Word or Publisher document open you can cut and paste your ideas into, because before you know it, you can be several clicks down a rabbit hole and you might never find that idea again. One of the best places to get ideas is from patrons. When you're at the circ desk, take a minute to ask them what they'd like to learn, what kind of programs they'd like to see, or you can create a patron survey. I do recommend doing some research or training on creating effective surveys before you do create one. You do want to be creating it with intention. Coworkers are also a wonderful place to start. You want to be able to capitalize on some of their strengths. Ask them what are their hobbies, what are their interests, what are they good at doing. Even if they're not comfortable presenting or actually doing a program themselves, you might have someone on staff who can learn that information from them, get some ideas from them, and be able to use that. Take a look at activities, groups, and organizations in your community. What's happening? You can learn a lot about what your community likes by some of the more popular groups and activities that are going on. So for example, do you have a very active pickleball group or a lot of garden associations? Um, you might want to look into some pickleball or gardening programs. A way to do that is to look in your newspapers, watch your local news, take a look and see what some of your social media groups are in your community. You can also pay attention to local art trends or popular hobbies or sports, any local festivals that you might have going on. You can get tons of ideas from there. Now, it's very easy and quick, and you can do it in between doing your other duties to pop onto websites and social media groups. There are a ton of great ideas available online. Now, whatever social media platform or websites you prefer, this is where having those two lists and being able to cut and paste those programs really comes into play. And remember, just because you see something that's not exactly what you need doesn't mean you can't take it and adapt it. On the resources page at the end of these slides, I have a list of active Facebook groups. You can also visit websites of larger libraries and see what they've been doing to get ideas. They've got a lot more money and a lot more resources than we do, and a lot of times they have already gone through the whole process of designing and building and testing a program, and you can learn a lot from what they're doing. There are also a whole bunch of blogs that are dedicated to programming for specific populations. But a lot of times the blogs may not have been active for quite a while. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of good ideas on them. Just be sure to experiment with different kinds of searches. Try broadening or narrowing your search based on the kind of results you're getting. So for example, you can search adult library programs. That's a little more specific than just library programs. Or you can get really detailed and say senior library fitness programs if you're looking for something to get seniors active and moving. Local demographics are a way to see who we aren't reaching. Who lives in the community that we're not seeing come in? Who can we maybe draw in with a program? You can look at census information online, as well as simply being observant when you're out and about in your community. Who are people that you're seeing at the grocery stores, at the festivals, that you aren't seeing in your buildings? Your library administration may already have demographic information available at their fingertips. It's not a bad idea to check and see if they have that already. You can also look at circulation statistics. Just as local demographics can tell you who's not coming in, CircStats can tell you the people that are coming in, what they're checking out, what they're interested in. It can also tell you what you have maybe an amazing collection of that no one's checking out. That might be something that you want to do a program related to highlight how amazing your collection is on a certain topic. So you have an idea, now what? Mary Poppins said, well begun is half done. That saying's been traced back as far as Aristotle. It was probably being said before that. Of course, not in those exact same words. But it goes that far back because it's universally true. Some library systems have proposal forms or worksheets. These are great tools and a good place to start. If your system doesn't have one, there are some links to samples of planning worksheets in our resource slides at the end of these slides. Well, title and description seems like it might come first. Sometimes it doesn't always. Sometimes you have to get your idea formed before you can come up with a catchy title and description. The title should either tell them what the program is about or be cute and intriguing enough to draw them in so they'll actually read the description. And the description needs to be clear and simple so people don't just skip over it and not read it. So going back to the pine beetles, a good title would be Tree Killers, Pine Beetles in the Deep South. And a short description could be pine beetles are out in full force this year. Join us as we learn how to spot them and how to limit their damage. So catchy title, Tree Killers. I love that phrase. And really short description that gives them an idea of content, but doesn't drag on and on and on about all the details you're going to be covering. Now, justification and goals. Those sound a little complicated, but remember we went over the reasons why we do programming. That's your justification right there. It's pretty simple. There's a whole list back there you can refer to. And a goal would simply be narrowing that down. So if your justification for your wreath making program is to promote your library's crafting collection, then your goal could be to increase the circulation of your crafting collection. And then you can actually take a look and see, hey, did our numbers go up or did they stay the same? When and where is always tricky. If you identify the type of patron who's most likely to come, that'll help narrow it down. You don't want to put on a program for school-aged kids at 10 a.m. during the school year unless your target audience is specifically homeschoolers. You also don't want to be competing with a large event in the area, like a large downtown festival or the county fair. Take a close look at the physical space available before you get too deep into the rest of your planning. Do you have the space you need for what you need to do? Can your setup allow access to everyone comfortably? Is it ADA accessible? If you don't have the space you need, the program's likely to fail. People are likely to have a bad experience. And once they do, they don't really want to come back to us anymore. With equipment, materials, and supplies, lists. Do this beforehand and go over it multiple times with yourself. You want a list of everything you need. You don't want to end up missing something crucial the day of or the hour of the program. And this is where I bring in two lists as well. One is the things you absolutely, positively have to make the program work. And the other is a wish list. And even the tiny things like paper clips or rubber bands should be on both of those lists. The simple list is, again, what you need to make it happen. The wish list is what you're going to work off of when you're looking for sponsors or donors or additional funding. Now I'm going to move on to the least popular part of programming, which is budgeting. No one likes to do budgeting, but nothing fancy, nothing complicated. And unfortunately, it's really necessary. You need to estimate your cost to be able to get approval for the program and also to be able to go and ask sponsors or donors for funding or donations of items. And just keep it simple. First, you make an educated guess on the number of attendees, and that's always a guess. We never know how many people are really going to show up. Take a look at previous attendance in your libraries over similar programs and maybe add a few, 5 or 10 more in on that for your planning purposes, just in case. And then you go to your list of materials and equipment and supplies and see what you already have and what you don't have. The things you don't have, all you have to do is go online and find the generic basic prices of what you're looking for and add those up, and you've got a simple basic budget. Always round up just a little bit from what your total is, because availability sometimes can be a problem and prices do vary, especially if you're not putting the program on for another 6 months or a year, if you're like a super pre-planner for that. When you're looking for funding, this is where your two different lists come in handy. You have the list of things you need, and you have the list of things you'd love to have, your wish list. When you work from those lists, you can make a list of possible donors. For example, with the tree killer program, you may want refreshments. Well, you could see if one of the local master gardener groups or one of the local gardening clubs would sponsor refreshments for the program. Your goal is to get that wish list funded, but even if you only get the basic list funded, it's still a win and you've got a program going. Planning includes making sure everyone can access and enjoy the program. Inclusion is necessary. MLC's YouTube channel has a webinar called Adapting Programming for Special Populations, and it does a way better job than I can in covering this topic. We also have a disability support coordinator. Her name is Ruth Jinkiri. She's available for individual consultation, and she's happy to speak with you about any program that you've got coming up. Take a look at your space, help you make sure you're creating an environment that's accessible to all. Her contact information is at the end of the slides as well. And always, always plan to have a backup plan. Plan for something to go wrong. Plan for everything to go wrong. Staff gets sick, presenters get sick, someone might get a flat tire, your presenter might get a flat tire on the way in, they're not going to make it, there's no way they're going to be there. Cancellations, especially ones that are done at the last minute, patrons don't react very well to that. They've put the time and the effort into getting up, getting dressed, getting out of the house, making it to you, and then canceling the last minute. Not a good look. They may not want to come back. Even if it's not the library's fault, they may decide that, the library programming, that's unreliable. Why would I put my time and effort into going to others? There are lots of ways you can get the word out about your programs. It doesn't have to be limited to taping up a flyer at your library, but that's an important part of it. Flyers and social media posts should be designed to be attractive and modern. So if you haven't already, take a few minutes to do an online tutorial on Canva or on graphic design basics. MLC will be offering several webinars in the next few months. You can check our YouTube channel to find those. You can look on local social media groups for any groups that are related to the topic of your program and see if they'll share or post the information, such as a pickleball group or a gardening group, someone who might be interested in your information from the program. You can approach TV stations, radio stations, and newspapers. Now, that may feel daunting, but a lot of times they're looking for last-minute things to add as filler content. So they may not respond to you right away, or they may not come and do a segment on that particular program, but you're going to be in their mind as someone to go to when they do have a space or an opening that they need to fill. Reaching out to activity directors of local retirement communities or apartment complexes. They have a built-in audience they've already got, and they're always looking for things to share with them. You could piggyback off your city or county social media and newsletters. That might take establishing a relationship with them first, with the PR people for those agencies first. But once you do that, you'll be able to send things to them on a regular basis, and they're going to get a much broader audience than you'll be getting just by putting things on your own social media pages. Local businesses. It takes time, and you may not have the time to do it, but you can always call as well. See if they'll put up flyers or share posts about the programs that you're doing, especially if it's something that's related to the kind of business that they're running. And with children's programming, don't forget schools and daycare facilities or childcare facilities. That a lot of times does take creating relationships, first. They need to trust you first before they're sharing your programming. But they've got a much wider built-in audience for the programming that you're doing. And once your programming is over, do take the time to post photos of your events. Of course, you do need to get permissions or follow your library's policies about posting photos of people online. But that can do so much more for you for bringing people to the next program. If they see photos of people who are having fun or learning things and that it's a successful program, you're more likely to bring them in for the next one. Now, once it's over, it's not really over. Once your program has finished, of course, you know you have to clean everything up, wipe down the tables, put all the supplies away. But just as important is reporting and evaluating your program. You need to know what statistics your library system needs, and it may vary depending on the type of program that you're offering, whether or not grant funding is paying for the program, and a whole bunch of other factors. But the one thing that people always need is attendance. How many people came? And remember, attendance is always unpredictable. It's so many factors outside of our control. So having a low attendance at one program may not be because the program was not well designed or not attractive. It may simply be the weather was bad or something else big was going on in the community that you didn't know about. But the main thing is to get a fairly accurate attendance count. You may not always get every last person counted when people are coming and going for a program, but you do want it to be fairly accurate. Those numbers are going to help you plan and prepare for future programs. When you are getting information from patrons, do be mindful of their privacy. Don't ask for personal contact information or very detailed things if there isn't really a need. You should discuss with other staff and with your administration before you start taking people's information and decide, is it really needed? Is this just something we want to do so we feel better or so we can send them a personalized email? Or is it something that's actually needed for reporting purposes? You always want to try and have some sort of evaluation for your program. And it can be time consuming and it can be daunting too. But that can give you a lot of insight into what your patrons liked or didn't like about a program. Now, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't have to be so complicated. There are plenty of great program evaluations, both digital and print, that are online. Do a few searches and see if you can come up with one that's similar to what you think would work for you. But the main rule with doing an evaluation, with creating an evaluation, is to keep it short and sweet. People are more likely to give feedback if they're not intimidated by a long, complicated form. You never know. You might have thought a program was wonderful and went really well, but your patrons might think differently. Or you might have thought it was a total bomb and everyone had an absolute blast. And it's always good to ask if patrons have ideas for making the program better, what they would have done different, what they would have added. That can give you a lot of good insight into what they're looking for. And if you start meeting those needs, you're going to have higher attendance numbers. Documenting what you've done is so easy to fall by the wayside. Before you know it, you've already moved on, you've got the next thing has to be done, and you haven't written anything down about the program. Now, some library systems do have forms, or they may require specific information to be documented from each program. But what you definitely want to have is a little bit of narrative, something to give future you an idea of how things went, what went right and what went wrong. Because a year from now, you may want to do this program again, and you're going to remember, I know something about that didn't go quite right, but I don't remember what. And you don't want to end up making the same mistakes again. So just a few short notes to yourself about how the program went and anything you might change is going to be a lot of good information for you or someone else doing a similar program in the library system in the future. Now, the word cost analysis, just like budgeting, can be very intimidating, but it is so super simple and it makes you look really fancy. So, for example, if you have 10 people that come in and you spend $100 on the program, the cost per person for that program was $10. $10 per person is kind of a lot, especially if you're on a tight budget. You might not be able to pitch that program again to your administrator or pitch that program again to someone who's donating time or money or supplies for an event. But if you have 200 people show up and only spent $100, that's 50 cents a person. That's a lot easier to pitch an idea for doing a program again if it's a 50 cent per person. Really good if it's a 10 cent per person or a 0 per person, but you know what I mean. But if you can do that and have that number there, you have something to refer back to that's solid about how well that program went and how cost effective or not it was. Now, I've attached a lot of resources here for you. Some programming worksheets, programming guidelines, some active Facebook library groups. Now, the only reason I'm doing Facebook is because there are quite a number of them that are out there. I'm not promoting any one social media site over another. This one just has the most. And also, here are the contacts for myself. I'm the Library Development Director here at MLC. For Christina Kelly, she's our Public Relations Coordinator. She can help you with any kind of marketing or PR needs that you might need. And also for Ruth Jinkiri, our Disability Support Coordinator, who's be happy to talk with you about tailoring any of your programs to make sure that they're inclusive for everyone. So I know we've covered a lot today, and practically every topic we covered could be a session on its own and take up a lot of time. In October, we're going to be releasing a webinar just on the planning process, where we're going to go into a little bit more detail about writing catching titles, creating and using planning forms, and doing a more intensive budget. We'll also be doing some future workshops and webinars on programming ideas, which are always really fun to look at. So please feel free to contact me with any questions you have. And if you have any programming tips or tricks, drop me a line. I'd love to hear what works for you and what doesn't. Those are things that I can use in future trainings. So thanks so much for being here. Hope we see you again soon.